Good evening. This is Cassandra trying to record a different way tonight. So the story that we have this evening is Big Shot, Sling Shot. Hopefully you guys can see it. This is new. Big Shot, Sling Shot. They call it a toy. A rock in the pocket, big heart in the boy. I'll tell this story of kings and giants and war, but first get up, you better shut the door. Mothers don't like these kind of tales when war is described in such gory details. The boy's name is David. He keeps the sheep for his father Jesse 7 days a week. Younger and weaker with 8 brothers all, you get tired of hearing, "You are too small." The trouble started when Saul went to war and David was told, "Stick to your chores." Down in the valley, war drums rumbled, swords were sheathed, and buckles buckled. The Israelites faced the Philistines, 2 camps, 2 hills, and a valley between. When out of the camp walked a giant, a terrifying, troubling, towering tyrant, 3 meters tall, or 9'9", Goliath marched to the borderline. His giant armor on his giant chest, a giant shield with a giant crest, his giant spear on his giant back, and greaves fixed with giant tacks, his giant helmet on his giant head, and a giant voice boomed, and he said, "Why don't you come out? Why don't you fight? What's wrong with Israel? Afraid of my height? I defy you to choose a man. Come out to kill me if you can. The one standing at the end of the day will be the winner and the other a slave." Saul's army grew silent and very scared. In the shadow of Goliath, not one of them dared. David was restless and wanted to fight. He begged and begged till his dad said, "All right, you can go to the valley, bring back a report. Take bread to your brothers, give them support. But take no shield, take no sword, take no armor, take the Lord." Late that night in David's room, candles made the shadows loom. Opening the chest at the foot of his bed, he packed the slingshot and the bread. Early next morning, he left his sheep, ran down the mountain, jagged and steep. When he arrived, he heard the cry, the army song piercing the sky. "We lift our swords and take our stand for the promise of God, this holy land." He gave the keeper all the supplies, and no one looked at all surprised when David ran to the battle line and joined his brothers just in time. Goliath stood as he did before, out in the open, and let out a roar. Why don't you come out? Why don't you fight? What's wrong with Israel? Afraid of my height? I'm waiting for you to choose a man. Where are the warriors? I think they all ran. Ha 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 ha. David was mad. What can be done? Why do you fear? And why do you run? Who is Goliath? He is a tongue defiant, a boorish brute, a sag-bellied giant. So let me ask what the king will do, for the one whose sword thrust him through. The soldiers said, you'll be rich forever. The king will open the kingdom's treasure. The king's daughter will be your wife. You'll be a hero for the rest of your life. David's words were whispered to Saul, who summoned him to the royal hall. Young man, said Saul, you cannot fight. He'll break your bones with all his might. King Saul, it's true, I am a boy, but I'm not one to play with toys. I've killed lions and even bear. My sheep are safe within my care. The Philistine will be like them. I'll tear this giant limb from limb. David, said Saul, the Lord be with you. Today you fight for all the Jews. Take my sword, take my shield, and join my soldiers on the field. He tried them on, but they did not fit. I'll use my slingshot, said David, and that is it. He left the king, found a babbling brook, and from that stream 5 stones he took. Staff in hand and shepherd's bag, he approached the giant who liked to brag. Am I a dog? You come at me with sticks? And what's that bag? Are you hiding tricks? You are nothing, just a little boy. Will you fight me with your toy? Goliath laughed and roared, and David took 2 steps toward. He said to the giant, I see your sword. I come at you in the name of the Lord. You might be big and very tall. Of all these soldiers, I am small. But God doesn't look at things like this. I have my stones. I will not miss. Goliath moved closer to attack. David reached in his shepherd's sack, loaded a stone, slung it round and round. The armies heard a thudding sound. The rock sank right between the eyes, and on his face a big surprise. For now he knew size has no worth, as he staggered and fell upon the earth. Standing over this colossal man, David reached with just one hand. Slowly unsheathed the giant sword, with a mighty swing, cut off his gourd. When the Philistines saw their hero dead, in fear they turned away and fled. So David took Goliath's sword. He took Goliath's sword and cut off Goliath's neck. That's the gourd. When they say the gourd, he cut off his neck. David was brought before the king, and in one hand he held the sling. In the other was the gruesome eyes and that same dead look of surprise. A giant's head I bring to you, and now you know what God can do. The king arose and laid his hand, said to David, I understand. It's not the strong today who won, but a big shot from a slingshot of a shepherd's son. Wasn't that an awesome story? Big shot, slingshot. Such an awesome story to know that size doesn't matter, that God can use anyone he pleases, and no matter how big the problem or how big the issue may seem, you just go to God and ask God to help you, and you will be more than a conqueror. Awesome story. Big shot, slingshot. Hope you have a good evening.